is Amy Miraflor, and welcome to Glory Revealed, where we talk about how suffering and trials can bring glory and good. In this podcast, we will dig deep into painful life happenings and uncover the beauty that often unfolds when you surrender yourself to learn, to grow, and to become the person who God desires for you to be. Just because you are suffering doesn't mean it won't be used for good, and that is what we will talk about here on Glory Revealed. Hey friends, it's Amy. Welcome to Glory Revealed podcast. I am so glad that you guys are here. Yesterday, we did an amazing interview with Honey Stephanie Holden, and we talked about her Glory Revealed story. And I guess I felt it was only fair if we were going to do this, that I tell my Glory Revealed story. So that's what I'm going to do today. In case you missed it, I have started a podcast. I had intended to start a podcast many months ago, but I had some family things that needed my attention, and I had to kind of put pause on everything I was doing for a little bit. But I jumped on board this month, and we have a lot of things going on. So we've got this podcast starting. We've got a Kickstarter going. There's just a lot happening, and I'll talk a little bit about that over the next couple of days. But in case you missed it, we are doing 15 days of podcasting, straight podcasting. And the reason for that 15 days is it coincides with our Kickstarter that we have going on, which I'll talk about later. But the main reason for the 15 days is because I had been planning on podcasting for so long that sometimes you just have to dive in. So I'm basically creating a whole season in 15 days to kind of see how I feel about it and my thoughts. I have lots planned. I have some Glory Revealed stories to tell you guys about, which I think you're going to be really excited to hear. The people that I interview, I think they're going to be really helpful. So we'll just see how this goes. So today we're going to talk about me. This is hard. I don't know that I really want to dive that deep into me and tell my story, but I feel like it's unfair for me to be telling you about all the things that God can do and not tell you why I believe that so strongly. So that is why I am going to dive into my Glory Revealed story. To be fair, my story is still being written, as is yours, by the way. So, but mine is really, truly in the process. I'm not over the hump yet, unfortunately, but I am out of the desperate muck and mire moments that I had 2 years ago. And I want to tell you about it because there were so many miracles that were done during that time that made it very hard for me to not see God in what was going on. And that takes a lot for me to say because, to be honest, for many years, I really fell away from my faith, and I'll talk about that in a bit. And I didn't see God in everything. And in these moments when it got dark for me, He became very real to me. So that is my hopes in telling you about my Glory Revealed story. So I think I'm going to start at the beginning, if that's okay. And if you're watching this through video, I'm sorry if I cry. The beginning is, many of you know this, many of you know my story, many of you know, many of you were here with me for a really long time, and you journeyed with me for many, many years. So some of this might be a repeat for you, but for those of you who don't know, my name's Amy. I'm 48 years old, and I have two children, 17 and 15. 20 years ago this year, I married a man who was a youth pastor. And I was raised in Sonoma County. If you're not familiar with Sonoma County, it's on the very northern tip of the San Francisco Bay Area. It's heaven. And I was born outside of San Francisco. My parents moved to Sonoma County when I was 8. And I was raised in this really beautiful wine country. And it was a privilege, an upbringing that was really beautiful. And as I grew up, my mom was very much a strong Christian, and she kind of kept my circle really tight. And now, as I'm a mom of teenagers, I totally get why she did all the things she did. But I, stayed really close in a Christian circle. I think there were some positives and negatives to that. But for the most part, I ended up in a really small church community and ended up getting my teaching credential and started teaching 4th grade. And then I started dating somebody that I knew from high school. So we had known each other. He was also in the same church circle. And I really loved him, deeply. And he was my first kind of serious boyfriend. I had had a couple other boyfriends, but I love hard. Like some of the other boyfriends I had, I was pretty attached to. And so I'm loyal. I love hard. And so I met this person and loved him deeply, 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 deeply. And he was a youth pastor at the time. And I had always loved working with young people, and I wanted to work with young people, and so it felt like a match made in heaven. I was a teacher, he was a youth pastor, and for a while it kind of was like I felt like there was a lot of good. Looking back now, as I've been through a lot of therapy and as I've really examined my life, I see red flags about our relationship, not necessarily about him, but just about our relationship together. But regardless, we married. I decided when I had my kids that I didn't want to go back to work, and that was really hard because I really made more money. I was a teacher, if you can believe that. I was a teacher, he was a youth pastor. I just, I held the insurance. It was probably stupid, to be honest with you. And now that I look at myself, I realize I have a lot of blind spots, and that was maybe one of them. But I couldn't find daycare that I wouldn't bleed me dry, and that wasn't someone that I trusted, or that was somebody that I trusted. So I decided to stay home, and we tried to make ends meet. My husband at the time was doing some side work, and I stumbled upon all these blogs. This was back in 2009, and I had both kids, Jacob and Evelyn, and we called Evelyn Evie. And I found all these blogs talking about these moms that were making extra money by blogging, by sewing, by these little Etsy shops. Etsy was like a brand new thing. Gosh, I loved Etsy. It was so cool. I got most of my daughters headbands and shoes and little fun stuff from Etsy. And I was in love with Etsy. I was in love with these blogs, and I remember seeing a blog about repurposing clothing, and I repurposed. My parents for Christmas were taking us to Disney World for a Christmas gift, and I repurposed some hoodies. And hoodies, if you're not familiar, here in Sonoma County or in the San Francisco Bay Area in general, we're really close to the coast. I think it was Mark Twain that said the coldest winter he'd ever had was a summer in San Francisco, and it's the truth. The fog rolls in at night, and it can be ice cold. But it could have been 90 degrees that day. So we, as kids, carried hoodies in our backpacks everywhere we went. I always had a spare hoodie in the trunk of my car, like hoodies. That's all we wore. So for this trip to Florida, it was a Christmas trip. I had, wanted some hoodies, and there were some cute little Anthropologie hoodies that were like all embellished that I couldn't afford. So I decided to do it myself, and I'd never sewn. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I put together these 3 hoodies and took them on this trip to Disney World, and I got so many compliments, and I decided to start an Etsy shop that January, and I sold 15 hoodies in 30 minutes, and so I took the PayPal link down, tried to figure out how to sew these hoodies. I bought hoodies from Target and embellished them, and that was that. A business started. I remember my dad came over, and I was like hoodies exploding out of the chimneys of my house. And he was like, "What's going on?" And I said, "Well, I've stumbled upon a little side gig." And so my dad really got excited about it, and he jumped in and started helping me. And I just created this business, and eventually, it was called Evie's Tree. It was named after a tree that was painted in my daughter's bedroom. And I started this business. We eventually ended up doing, over a course of time, I believe it was almost over $20 million in sales. We just boomed. And we amassed this incredible loyal following of women all over the country, all over the world, that loved our pieces and loved our hearts. Our idea was everyday luxury, everyday life. So you could wear these hoodies anywhere you went. You could dress them up, dress them down. And the concept was really mother friendly. And it just kind of, it was a thing. Blew my mind. I was really not well equipped for this job, if I'm to be brutally honest. I think eventually my husband ended up quitting his job and we started working together. Big mistake. I was trying to do too many things. And I can't say that I was ill-equipped being the CEO. I think I was very good at, big picture, at visionary things. I was not very good at finding people to help me. And I kept a lot of it close. And that was my mistake. And so, I just, over the years, as entrepreneurs do, you learn as you're growing, and it just, I think really where things went south were towards the end, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But during the process of growing this business, my kids were being raised by their dad, basically, and we would juggle back and forth, and it really went against the mission of what I wanted to be, which was a mom. And I found myself overwhelmed with gratitude for this incredible business that God had given me. And it gave us all the financial means that I thought I needed, which I think that's the key. Like, I didn't need everything that I had. And, in a way, I feel a bit like Esau, where if you're not familiar with the story of Jacob and Esau, where he sold his birthright for a bowl of soup. And in a way, that's kind of what I did. I sold myself as a mother to make millions of dollars. And I regret that deeply. I do. Not to say that I would never make $1 million again. I think that's not the point. The point is that anytime you jeopardize your moral compass and who you are and who you know you want to be deep down inside, that is wrong for you. And things got sideways, continued sideways, and I became farther and farther away from I'm going to rewind a little bit back to my 16-year-old self, who was deeply spiritual, deeply craved connection with God. In those moments, the true version of Amy was somebody who, yes, I wanted to make money and be self-sufficient. We all do. But mostly I had such an intrinsic, deep down desire to connect with people on a intimate level and spiritual level. And that was who I was. I was meant to be a connector. I was meant to be somebody who deeply thought about God and about, I was meant to be an influencer for Jesus. That sounds weird to say, but there it is. I was meant to be somebody who talked about God and was not afraid to talk about God, and was, there was a definite depth to me spiritually. And over time, I sacrificed that in order to make more money, in order to become more, in order to fit in with people who I thought really mattered. It's funny, now that my life has fallen apart, the people that I thought really mattered are the people that were not there for me when my life fell apart. I want to say that loud and clear. The people who I thought mattered were the people who were not there for me when my life fell apart. And I think we need to definitely think about that when we are striving to be something for somebody else. Will these people be here for me when my life falls apart? Am I basing my identity on a foundation that is not who I really am? And so I think looking back, I have a lot of wow moments thinking, okay, I see where I went wrong. But as 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, all of those years, I stepped farther and farther and farther away from who I really was deep down inside. And you can see that. If you look back at photos, I'm tired. I'm bloated from too much alcohol, from numbing myself. I look spread thin. The joy and the light from my eyes is gone. And gradually you see that. In 2019, my life came to a head. My husband and I had a very serious marriage issue that came up. And I'm so loyal. But in that moment, I probably should have thought, I wonder if God's trying to tell me something. But I think God's mercy was walking alongside of us. And I think God is so merciful. He gives us so many chances. I think he was still there wanting us to try to put him in the center of our world and make him the center. But we didn't. We tried. We kind of did a couple counseling sessions. We never put God back into the center of our lives. And because of that, COVID happened, stress came, the wind came, all the things. Our lives just kept sinking deeper and deeper, and our marriage chasm just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Our children were becoming teenagers, and our moral compass in our home was not solid, and things were falling apart. In 2021, COVID was actually a great year business-wise. We did great financially. We got all the government loans. We got we got all the things that we needed. But then in 2021, we over-ordered at the end of 2020. And I disappointed a lot of my factories. I disappointed myself deeply. I became greedy, and I became somebody who was desperate to keep myself alive. Right around this time, my dad was dying. He had Parkinson's. He had it for about 15 years, maybe longer. We're not sure. And he was going downhill. And my dad was my business rock, and I couldn't talk to him. He was gone in all of 2021. And it was heartbreaking for me. And my marriage was deeply broken all of 2021. And the kids were suffering, really poorly suffering. And my dad passes in July. And even though we had been knowing it was time and that he needed to go, he needed to go. And it was a beautiful passing. It filled me with deep grief, and I was already so sunk and stressed out and spread thin. And losing my dad was just hard. And so we enrolled our son, and he had a great opportunity, and we enrolled him in a school about an hour away. Huge mistake, because he got this great opportunity to be there, and it shouldn't have happened, but it did. And so my son was commuting in and out of this school, and then finally in October, our marriage came to a screeching halt, and some things happened that were irreparable. And we, separated then for about 6 months. We tried over the holidays to be together and take photos and be there for the kids. But in January, it became pretty obvious that our marriage was pretty broken. We tried from about April to November of 2022. My husband moved back, but we lived separately, and it was terrible, really terrible. And I regret so many of the things that I said and did. And, I was trying to keep Evie's tree alive, and I was numb. I couldn't get out of bed. I didn't know where to go or who to ask for help. I had lost some of my key employees for various reasons, and I was attempting to run this on my own. My husband, who was a business partner, really was not involved in the business at all during this time, and it during 2022, and it became unbearable. Like, I was all of a sudden a single mom. I was trying to keep a business afloat, and I became somebody I don't even recognize. I don't even know who that person was. I don't ever want to be that person again. So, glory revealed story, right? Okay, let's go there, because this is depressing. So in March of 2022, I have one of those Bibles that has wide margin journal Bibles. They're incredible. If you don't have one, by the way, you need one. I bought it in 2018, and in 2019, I look back now and I see that break in our marriage that happened in 2019. God was calling me back. He was calling me to set myself aside. He was calling me to say, I am not going to live selfishly anymore. I'm going to humble myself. I'm going to stop striving for things that don't matter, and I'm going to put the things that matter, like my kids and my family and my faith, first and foremost. But I didn't do that in 2019. I just kept going, and true to Amy's brand, do scary things was my motto, and I just kept doing them. And Anyway, my journal Bible, I started journaling probably a handful of times in 2019, and in 2020 a handful of times, and in 2021 I started journaling more deeply. And I know I have to go back to church. We went to church occasionally before COVID, but then once COVID started, we just didn't obviously go anywhere. And I knew in 2021 I had to get back to church. I had to. I was dying, and I knew it. I needed community. I needed faith. I needed something higher than me. And but my dad dies, my marriage falls apart, and I finished 2021 numb. In March of 2022, my best friends, which you'll see an interview with Heidi, have their pastors here at the Promise Center, which is an incredible church. If you're local in Sonoma County, come see us at the Promise Center. I'm typically there every Sunday, staying out front, usually trying to greet people. If I'm not, I'm inside. Come find me. I want to talk to you. I want to see you. If you go to the Promise Center, come sit with me. But Heidi and Chad, we used to go to their church, and then we stopped going to their church. That was part of my breakdown. And in March of 2022, I looked at Evie. I said, we need to go to church. And, she said she would go with me. And so she and I went to church. And I remember finding I remember sitting in the service and finding Heidi, excuse me, and her hugging me. And I remember knowing that I had come home and that I needed to stay. And ever since then, I've been to church every Sunday. And that was the break in my life. That was the glory is starting to shine through. I sat through every service and cried like this every service. And I knew I was so far from who I needed to be. So, 2022, in June of 2022, another incident happened, and it became very clear that there was no coming back from my marriage. And I didn't want to accept that. I wanted to keep trying to make it work. I'm so loyal. And I wanted to keep trying to make it work. But our family was broken. And I went through that whole summer just heartbroken. And I kept trying to figure out how to fix Evie's tree. I wanted to save it. I talked to bankruptcy attorneys. I was trying to restructure. I was trying to do everything I could. And then finally, in early October of 2022, I knew that I couldn't save the business. And before that, in September, my husband had filed for divorce. So between those two things, it was like there was a moment where God said, take your hands off the wheel, Amy. Take your hands off the wheel. And for the first time in many, 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 many years, 15, 20 years maybe, I took my hands off the wheel. And I said, okay, God, if we sink, we sink. If I lose my house, I lose my house. If I lose everything, I lose everything. And I did. I lost pretty much everything. I lost my business. I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of customers, and rightly so. I lost a lot. And I lost some family members. I lost a lot. And I lost my marriage. I thankfully haven't lost my kids, but I just took my hands off the wheel and I said, God, I can't get myself out of this. Like, I am in such a deep, dark hole. I don't even know where to go. I don't know how to get out of this. I don't know where, I don't know how to support myself. I don't know anything. In November, on November 3rd, that was the last time I saw my husband. It's really the last time I've kind of spoken to my husband. I had 2 phone calls with him over the last 2 years, but other than that, the 15-minute phone calls, not very much. I laid in bed November 6th. 2022 was our 18th wedding anniversary, and 3 days before he had left. And I laid in bed, and Heidi came, which you heard us talk about. Heidi came and crawled into bed with me, and we cried. And I didn't know what was going to happen. And I just remember in that fall that the church was doing a all-in program. They were raising money to purchase the building next door for like office space. And people were donating money, and I was broke. I had nothing. I had nothing to give. And I was heartbroken about that. And I was really sick about where I was. Here I was, late 40s, and this is where I am. How embarrassing, like, I have nothing to show for my life except for my kids. And even that, we're all struggling. And I remember walking down to the front. Everybody was like taking their envelopes with their like donation in it and walking to the front. And I took my envelope and I was like, God, I don't have anything to give you, but I give you myself. From this moment on, I am going to do whatever it is that you want me to do. I'm going to change myself. I am going to be better. And so that's what I did. 2023 came, and early 2023, my children, I became legally and physical full-time custody of my kids, and not by choice, but that is what happened. And now I was a single mom. I had no job. I was trying to liquidate everything with Evie. That was really my job at the time. I had to do my due diligence with debtors. I had to liquidate everything, and it was a mess. And I was trying to get product from the factories, and only 2 factories honored their settlement. There was another factory that did not. They did not. I sent them we made a settlement. We made a legal negotiation with the lawyers. I sent them the money, and then they never sent me the goods. Just so awful, so terrible. I couldn't finish out my, orders with my customers. I was heartbroken. But starting in 2023, something happened to me. After taking my hands off the wheel and after surrendering, I decided I had to be better. So starting in January, I started the year off with a fast. I barely ate. I ate fruits, vegetables, and protein, and no wine, no sugar, all the things that I loved. I was like, I am just going to eat enough to get me through this day. That is it. I'm not eating anything else, just enough to get me through this day. And I got up. I decided every morning at 5 o'clock, I was going to get up and I was going to sit on my couch and I was going to pray and read my Bible. I didn't care if God showed up. I was going to show up. I needed divine intervention in my life. I was at the lowest of the lows, and I didn't know where to go, and I didn't know what to do, and I was alone, and I needed help. And so every morning at 5 o'clock, rain or shine, I would get up, I would pour myself a cup of coffee, and I would get my journal out, and I would just pour pour myself out into those journals, and God showed up every morning. He and I and I walked through those times. And in January I fasted. In February, after the fast, I decided I hadn't fasted enough. I needed to know more, and I kept fasting in February, and I started attending small groups at the church. If you have small groups at your church, I highly recommend you do this, because what it does is it holds you accountable. It creates community, and it speaks to your heart. If you are open, the studies that they're doing, even if it's a weird study that you don't even think is going to relate to you, those studies opened my heart. They put scriptures in my mind that I would never have thought about before. I started to change myself. Change does not happen overnight. I am still not who I should be. I still make mistakes, and I always will. I still have so much to learn. I still have so many blind spots, and you will too. But when you choose disciplines like fasting and prayer and forcing yourself to be in community with people who are trying to be better, all of those things are going to change you. This was my AA. This was I need to stop. I need to hold myself accountable. I need to change who I am. I need to become better. Before this had happened, I had gained over 30 pounds. I was so stressed out in 2022. I had to heal myself. I started walking every day. I started praying. I started doing all the things that I knew I needed to do. And all throughout 2022, I did the work. I showed up for therapy every day. I joined a therapy group where you show up 2 or 3 times a week in a group with other people who are struggling, and you talk about it and you hold yourself accountable. I did that on top of doing the groups at church. I mean, I was like not going to stay the same. I did not care if I had to sell everything I had, which I basically was doing. I didn't care. I had to change. That happened all throughout 2023. I lost 20 pounds in 2023. It was so slow and painful, but eventually I did it. And this last January, I remember we did our church prayer and fasting again, and something, I can't tell you what happened, but there was a light bulb that went off in my body and my mind, and I saw what God had done. He had saved me. He had saved me and my kids. We're still here. We had food every day when we shouldn't have. We had money even when we didn't know where it was coming from. We had clothes. We had vehicles. We had gas. We had everything we needed. I'm not saying it wasn't hard. It was freaking hard. There were some days where I was like, we've got $20 left in our account, and we have to watch this for 3 days. So nobody touch anything, nobody do anything. We worked together, but we made it. I started picking up some consulting jobs. I started doing some small work things. I started working out some of my debt, which I'm still working on. I started doing the hard work. Eventually, step by step by step, I started to see what God had done. And I was okay. I came alive. And when I look back at photos of me in 2022 and me in 2023, and then now, I see what God has done. There is glory. And I know we're still not solved. I still don't know what I'm going to do financially for myself. I'm doing small things, but future forward, I don't know. There's still some things that need to happen with my family, and who knows where I stand, long term, but I am alive and I'm okay. And I'm so grateful. And I have a new chance, a new leash on life. When you go through something and you don't know if you're going to make it, and then you do, you look at life totally differently, and you see everything that's around you as beautiful because you're just so grateful you're there. So in 2022, before I closed my business, I asked God, like, we were thinking about restructuring, and there was a company that was thinking about buying us. And I asked God, what was I supposed to call it? If I had to change our name, what was I going to call it? And this is when I started to journal, and I wrote down in my journal, I don't know where this came from, but the word glory revealed. And I looked it up, and I was looking at in my journal the other day, and I wrote down glory revealed. I think that was in probably September of 2022. And I looked it up, and the verse that comes up is Romans 8. It says, "For I consider the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us." And I grabbed onto that so tight, because this suffering where I was somewhere I didn't ever want to be. I was in so much pain, and that verse kept me all throughout 2023. I kept saying it. There's going to be good. There is going to be glory coming out of this. These sufferings hurt so much, but I know that the glory is coming. I would get up every morning and I would write that verse over and over. I would speak it out loud. I would tell it to friends, because I believed that there would be glory coming through on the other side. And I started reading stories about people in the Bible who they went through hard times. Moses, my God, Moses was the one who carried me that whole Israelite journey. Everything about that, the sufferings that they endured, the glory that came at the end, it was what fed me and kept me going. So this whole idea of glory revealed, that's what this is all about, is that you are going to suffer. We are all going to suffer. We are all going to go through things and times where we think God is not there. We're going to go through times where we feel like we're never going to get back up. We go through times where we lay in bed and we think, this is it. This is the last time I'm going to bed, and I'm not getting back out of this bed. Like, I'm not going to make it. I can't even roll over. We all have those times. But I promise you, there will be glory on the other side. There will be glory if you keep going one step in front of the other, 1 foot in front of the other. Do the next right thing. Posture your heart towards God and say, what is it that you need me to do right now? Because I will do it. Just surrender. Let yourself go. Take your hands off the steering wheel. I promise you, if you do that, the glory will come. You will wake up, and maybe your circumstances don't fully change. I can say that some of my things are still the same, but I wake up and I see what God's done. I've seen His goodness. I have seen how He's taken care of me. He will do that for you too. And I promise you that. Another verse that is 1 Peter 4:13 in the Message version says it so well. It says, friends, when life gets really difficult, don't jump to the conclusion that God isn't on the job. Instead, be glad that you are in the very thick of what Christ experienced. This is a spiritual refining process with glory just around the corner. What he's trying to say is this, guys. This is what this is all about. This hardship and the pain, this is making you a better person. It's making you more like Christ. It's making you somebody who is going to be wiser and stronger. That's what this is for. Glory is right around the corner. Your circumstances might not change. There's a lot about my life that has not changed. But you will change. You will wake up one morning and you will look yourself in the face and you will say, in the mirror, and you will say, I am not the same. And you will see it. You'll see joy. You'll see glory everywhere because you surrendered yourself. You did the next hard thing. You acknowledge that life is not going to be what you make it. It's going to be what God makes it and what you surrender yourself to His plan. That's what this is about. When Jesus was at, the Garden of Gethsemane, and he said, "Not your will, but mine. Not your will, but mine." Guys, this is just all about being like Christ, saying, "Not my will. This is not my will, but yours." If I have to go to that cross, I will go to the cross. If I have to sacrifice everything, I will sacrifice everything. But what happens? The veil splits open, glory comes down, right? We now have the Holy Spirit in our lives. I mean, glory, 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 right? Things happen. Beauty. We have the New Testament, the book of Acts. We have all these beautiful miracles that happened because Christ sacrificed himself on the cross. I promise, surrender. If you're going through a really hard time, you can get through this. You can. If you're going through something where you think you're never going to make it, maybe you're sick, maybe financially you're struggling, maybe your marriage is over, maybe something with your kids, don't give up. Stop trying to make this something that you are trying to control. Take your hands off the wheel. Ask God what it is that he wants you to do. Surrender every day. Do the next right thing. Before you know it, your circumstances might change, but you will. You will wake up and you will thank God that you are still alive. You will look and you will see what God has done, and it will be something that will carry you forever. We're all going to struggle. I'm going to struggle again. You will too. But now I can look back and I can see that God took me through this time. He's going to take me through anything that I go through. Anything. Doesn't mean I'm not going to suffer again. But I know that when hard times come, I know he's there. I know he's walking with me. Too many miracles happen. And hopefully during this course of this podcast, I can tell you about some of them. Too many things happened where God showed himself to me. And I know he will take care of me always. That is glory revealed. That is what will happen to you when you surrender and when you take your hands off the wheel. Thank you, friends. I'm sorry for crying. It's a lot longer than I planned for it to be. But we've got this. And thank you for being here. The ones of you who are left, who have prayed for me and stuck with me, thank you. I'm not done. I am still a work in progress. I am not perfect. I'm still making so many mistakes. But I will keep doing the next right thing. And we're here for each other. I love you, and I'm praying for you. And you've got this.